far as the Course in Miracles and you're getting acquainted with it, you came in kind of the side door through Choose Again.
Well, it simply came down to saying yes to the next indicated thing. And for me, there was a long line of things to get to the place where we were ready to do that, to be a part of Choose Again. And I had listened to interviews with Deiderick online, and the way that he didn't mention God, he mentioned love. And I could relate to him. The fact that he had been in addiction for most of his life before before he found the Course, which then became the principles of the Course that started Choose Again. And I related to it, and I thought, this is incredible. At some point, I decided that for myself or for Wendy and I to go down to Costa Rica would be super cool. There's a center in Costa Rica. And at the time, her son was with us and around us and struggling with addiction to definitely harder drugs. It was really at the bottom of the barrel and had even died and been brought back in the weeks prior to us even finding Choose Again. And it was really amazing because I called down to the center in Costa Rica and Deiderick picked up the phone, which I don't think really happens all that often, but it happened that day. And I had a conversation with him, and it just dawned on my mind, what if we were to send Andrew? What would that be like? And so I asked him, what would that be? Could we do that? Would that work? And so he just mentioned that we needed to have certain things happen for him to be clean for a little bit of time, and that we could ship him on down. And so that was the first thing that we planned on doing.
Wow.
And as a result of him being down there, Wendy and I went down after he'd been there for how long? A month?
2 months, I think.
2 months that he was there. And that's when we made our trip down. And our plan was to be there for 11 days, which we were. And I'm going to tell you my version of it. Wendy will add on to this because it's beautiful what happened when we got there. The reality of what I found there was like the answers to a lot of my questions. And I had this eagerness to know if Wendy was jiving with it, like, what do you think? I mean, I think a week in and I asked her like, hey, how's it going for you, And she was still having headaches because her mind was smoking on looking for loopholes and how did this work and how doesn't it work? And but it was cool, and her son, helped facilitate our introduction into the real meat of it, to what Choose Again really is. And I will say that when we left there after 11 days, it had such a profound effect. And the interesting thing is, over the years, Wendy and I were always working separately with men and women. We always had our own groups and things that we would do. And we wanted to look for something what would bring us all together. This can't be separate, And Choose Again was the thing. And when we got home, there's a lot more to it than I'll mention, but within the first week of being home, I had a circle going in our basement and probably had 14 people show up. And right away. And then the next week, Wendy was with a group of girls upstairs working, and I was with a group of people downstairs, and she told the girls upstairs, next week, I'm downstairs. So if you guys want to meet up here and do your thing, that's fine, but that's where I got to be. And really that we haven't turned back since then. And really just taught ourselves. We learned how to do it on our own, really, with the support of Choose Again the whole time. They've always been very supportive of our process and learning and growing, and what we've contributed to the center has been amazing, as the organization as a whole, including workshops that we've done in France, and it's just an amazing amount of stuff that we've done with them.
The fact that he answered the phone, looking back now on your story of how it's evolved, like how perfect. If it could have been anyone else, maybe it wouldn't have been the way it was. But when you were having your wheels smoking, as he said, was there one thing you were fixated on that you were not sure about, or was it kind of the process? Or
yeah, I mean, going from I was raised Catholic and not strict or anything, but grew up in the Catholic Church, and then I did 12-step for years, and so when we went to Choose Again in Costa Rica. That's where I was at. I had, 22 years sober or something at the time. And so, there's this idea that I'm inherently bad. I'm inherently a sinner. And now you're telling me that I'm not, that's that's not true. And so that's the part where I was like, and I thought, you know, based on the information I was hearing, I went to this place of like, so people don't have to take accountability for, you know, what they are doing. But, you know, contrary to that,
it's the ultimate accountability.
It is the ultimate accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah. Radical responsibility is what they say in Choose Again. And so it was great because my son handed me Marianne Williamson's book, Return to Love, which was a great introduction for me because she was a 12-stepper and an ACIM person, and so it sort of married the two things together for me perfectly. And I read it while I was there, the whole thing in, you know, however many days, 11, 12 days. And I had some amazing processes with my son in the circle there. Yeah. And so the healing that took place was incredible. And can't say enough about it, honestly.
But you could talk about the first dinner.
Oh. Yeah, we got there, and we got there after dinner time, and so they had saved some food for us, and they have this beautiful big dining room with a long dining table in it, and I love that place. And so we were sitting eating dinner, and Andrew was on cleanup crew that night in the kitchen, and I could hear him in there, just, you know, laughing and talking and having a great time with the other clients that were there. And before he left, he couldn't even look someone in the eye and have a conversation. And so the transformation that happened for him in such a short amount of time, it was only a month and a half, you know, 2 months, whatever it was just incredible. And he was getting up early in the morning at 5:30 and going down to Lake Arenal and you know, excited about seeing the howler monkeys on the way there and sunrise.
Like a 3-mile run.
Yeah.
Before he had any coffee.
Yeah. And so the sneaky thing was I had no idea that it was what led to Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And they, you know, they brought the book out and then they would read portions of it while we were sitting in circle. Something would come up that you know, directly correlated to that, and so they would get it out and they would start reading from it. And so it was my first, I had no idea, I'd never heard of it before. It was my first introduction to it.
Now you mentioned the center for the audience. What's the official name of the center in Costa Rica?
It's called El Cielo.
El Cielo? Mm-hmm. Is that the sky in Spanish, or the ceiling?
Heaven, I think.
Oh, heaven.
Something like that, yeah.
El Cielo in Costa Rica. Now, when I first heard about Choose Again, this was really when I met you all last year, and I laughed to myself as I kind of understood the process, and then went to one of the beautiful meetings that you hosted, and I recognized it was kind of like a sneaky side door from Holy Spirit to get people into the course who may not be ready to just grab the book or know about it in a beautiful way, and seeing the process that unfolded, and how it was directly related to all the best parts of the course about releasing fear, releasing judgment, aligning with your true self. And to be clear, this is not an attack in any way against religion, Christianity, or Catholicism, but growing up Catholic as well. The best part for me, as I really got to understand what the course was about years ago, was it's all good news. And one of the fundamental things about it is that you are not a sinner. You are not guilty at all. You are this perfect spiritual being that's just making a mistake with your power, and thus all of this madness out here. But it seemed too good to be true in a way for me. And so when I first encountered the thought system, I didn't necessarily have the idea about no accountability, but I first got hung up also on the like, wait a minute, I'm sure I've done some really messed up things. I, like so many of us, experienced abuse, alcohol and drug abuse, and freed myself from that. But along with that is a lot of messed up choices, and a lot of people get hurt. And primarily for myself, I was hurting myself. But I did, of course, you know, do a lot of things that I wish I hadn't. And so I struggled a little bit initially with the idea that could be the way it really could be.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's funny because, so from my perspective, where I was coming from, I was totally a victim.
Yeah.
And from your perspective, you might have been a victimizer.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Neither one is true.
Yeah. No. It was so beautiful, and as freeing ourselves from within the illusion, the things that we use to bind ourselves, drugs, alcohol, etc. That seems to be one of the most effective ways the ego can hold people down who are really ready. Because we don't, on so many levels, we're not really accepting this world. We don't really want to be here, but we don't really have a way to understand why.
Yeah.
But the choose again process is a way to start for those who can very much relate to not being happy here.
Yeah, for people.
Can you talk about that a little bit as far as that focus from choose again and what it looks like and why it's important and what it means to look at those childhood traumas and
So to just say it, to start off with the reality of I experience this world through my lens. So whatever beliefs that I hold about myself, I'll experience, and I have to. It's how it works. So if I've got beliefs in me that aren't that are less than joyous, then I'm going to experience the world through that. So to give the example of, if I believe that I'm guilty or bad, or maybe I believe that I'm inadequate, not enough, that somehow maybe I believe that I'm stupid, that's going to be my lens through which I see the world, and everything is fed back to me that way. In all my relationships, I'm actually putting it out there and looking for it in return. And so when I can get down and see where I'm the one that made up the belief within the childhood, and it doesn't have to be traumatic. We say trauma, but really it could be any childhood. We're going to come up with stuff. I was 2 and my mom was playing with me in the dining room, and like everything was wonderful. And then she got up to answer the phone because her mom called. Grandma's on the phone and mom's gone for 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, I made up that I'm abandoned. And based on the way that we know the psychology of a child's mind works, it's 100% about me. And so there's this little thing that's just get tucked away in there that says I could be abandoned. I have this sense of being utterly alone at times. And I literally look for it in my relationships, that I'm going to be abandoned, that women don't have time for me. Might be the way that it kind of presents itself in the world. And so what I want to do through the choose again process, we could talk about what that is, but we really use the current life situations and feelings that are going on, and we look at the feelings. So if I'm feeling sad and lonely, I have to ask myself, is this a familiar feeling? Of course it is. So step 1 is, I'm upset. I'm sad and lonely. Step 2 is,
this is about me. I want to blame it on some outside situation or circumstance, but in order for me to change anything, I have to really admit that it's about me, that these are my feelings.
And if we stopped right there, if someone said, I really can't see it, I'm step 2, no, this is about that thing over there. And really that's a stopping point. That's where it's okay, well, let's put a bookmark in it. It's time to walk away, because I'm admitting that I'm a victim of whatever seems to come along. I'm no longer willing to see it any other way. That's how it is. And that's fine. That can be a way that I see go through my life. It's wonderful. I'm not going to push anybody past that. I'm not going to be more interested than they are in healing what the belief is. But when the admission has to be there, that willingness is where God comes in. And so when we get through step 2, step 3 is, what's the feeling? So no longer trying to push it away. I really want to make it as big as I can. I want to have it in my awareness. Where do I feel it in my body? Yes, it's familiar. I feel it all the time. And really be honest and allow for it to maybe even change a little bit, but maybe it turns into some anger. So whatever that is, so just feel the feeling. Be willing to really feel the feeling and not push it away.
Yeah. And step 4 is this a familiar feeling? And so you use the feeling and let it take you back to an earlier time in your life when you felt the same way. And it could be in childhood, and it could be last week. We can work with whatever comes up. So you just take it back to whatever memory comes up. It doesn't have to match the current circumstance at all, but just let the feeling be the guide. And the feelings, don't forget. They'll take you back.
They're there.
Yep.
So once you've come up with the memory in step 4, step 5 is to really take a look at, like, in that situation, what did I make it mean about me? What was my judgment of myself? Because that's where the belief is created. So in that example of my mom leaving the room, I made up that I'm not supported. I could be abandoned. I'm definitely alone. It's all my fault. I must not be lovable. I mean, these are, like, it happens this way.
Yep.
And it can be, and when you do it, when the feeling guides you back to that memory, and people are just amazed sometimes when the feeling pops them up in that situation, but here it is. And so we just help them to navigate through what, and even, but having them, the best way is to have them realize what they did, that they made up those beliefs.
Yep.
And because they are the ones that made it up, they can also change it.
That goes back to the radical responsibility that you said.
Yeah. And I want to say this, I think it's important to say this right here, because this is what the ego will do with this information. When I come up with the fact that I believe that these things, or what it wants to do is blame. And they did it. Because my mom did this, or my dad smacked me here, or punished me this way, or left me, high and dry in this situation. It's their fault. But this is no blame.
Yep.
This is blameless. We're just taking a look at what we did to take accountability for it. If I want my life to change, I have to be willing to see that I did it, and I'm not to blame. This is blameless.
Yeah.
It's just accountability.
That's a big point. And for those of you who've never heard of A Course in Miracles and came across this video, or have a little bit of familiarity, we've mentioned some concepts and ideas that I just want to take a minute and discuss. And one of the lessons of A Course in Miracles is I am not the victim of the world I see. And what this process is, and what part of the joy of the truth that we are being taught by Jesus is that we are these unbelievably powerful spiritual beings, and that we are responsible for this universe and for our experiences here. And the numerous thought systems on the planet, religions and philosophies, are putting us, as Wendy mentioned, as we're talking about now, in victim mode, that we are at the effect of the world, and we're at the effect of what others are doing. And Jesus is coming back through the Course to guide us to the truth that that is not the way things are, that we have gotten so disconnected and lost from who we really are and the power that we really have, that this process with Choose Again and the walking the path of A Course in Miracles is retraining our minds out of the system of untruths that have kept us in the victim mentality. And we've mentioned, Travis has mentioned the ego, and we're going to have more content available to really dive into what the ego is and explain it. But a simple version would be the ego is a device that we are using to interpret our experience here. And the device is one of separation and guilt and fear, and we mistakenly are using this supreme power that we have received by God to have an experience, and we chose to use the ego mistakenly as a way to experience this world. And because we're so powerful, we did such a good job, the ego is running, if you will, while we're using it, in a separation mentality. So it's using blame and guilt and fear to give us an experience through that lens. And what Jesus is guiding us to, and Choose Again, is a retraining of our minds to truth, to love. And what Jesus represents through A Course in Miracles and through the lifetime that we're also familiar with is that using unconditional love and forgiveness is the way we were designed to operate. And so we're retraining our minds back to that process. And to be clear, when we say Jesus, we are talking about the spiritual master that walked the planet, not the Christian Jesus or the Islamic or Buddhist Jesus. The idea that Jesus was human as much as we are in this experience, and that he evolved his consciousness to a level of spiritual mastery. And so this is the path that he's guiding us through with the Course in Miracles, is to reach the level that he did. He makes it very clear that we are his equal. He is not the special son of God, different from us in any way. And in fact, he's guiding us through the path of A Course in Miracles to attain the level that he did. And so with the Choose Again, it's almost a beginning way to start that path.
Yeah, well, it absolutely is. And so the last part, and since you're talking about forgiveness, that's what the last end, step 6, and most important in my view. Wendy can talk about.
Yeah, so step 6 is it's a 2-part forgiveness process where we forgive ourselves for ever believing that those things that we made up were true. That's where the Course comes in for sure. And so we're not forgiving, whoever we found in the memory that was there at the time. We're forgiving ourselves. And in our circles, we do a mirroring process, which is can be really intense, but also really helpful. You look into the other person's eyes, and they're just a mirror for you. And so you would say something like, "Forgive me for believing that I am not enough." That's what I made up in the memory. "Forgive me for believing that I'm not enough." And the response would be something like, "Oh, thank God that's not true. You made that up, and it was just a mistake, and you can let it go. Who you are in truth has always been enough. You're made in God's image." And so it sounds something like that. And the second part of it is an affirmation of what the truth is. And that we really learn from doing the Course. That I am whole and complete, perfect, innocent. That those things that I believed about myself were never true.
I think
so it sounds like.
So it sounds like, forgive me for forgetting that I'm perfect, whole, and complete.
It's part of the really great news of this path. And this idea that we collectively and individually have been so wrong about what we are. And been so, and we see that out there in the systems of the world that are reflecting back. You are a victim, and you are small and separate, and you are powerless. And the best thing for me is that these aren't just mantras. They're doing the choosing in process. You have experiences that are so powerfully and transformative, and I know you get a chance to see those often.
I want to just say, because it just popped into my head, I remember, and I'll never forget it, when I was at the center in Costa Rica with Deiderick, the founder of Choose Again. I was doing a process, and one of the beliefs that I came up with is that there was something wrong with me. And his reflection back to me was, there's never been anything wrong with you. And I'll never forget hearing that. It was like I had been waiting to hear it my whole life. And I believed it. I believed him, which was, a huge difference from believing that I was a sinner when I got there.
A little bit of a shift. For sure.
Big shift. But it's interesting, once those beliefs are held, once I have those beliefs, it's something that I made, and then my whole life reflects it back to me. So I experience my life through that lens. I pick relationships to feed it back to me, and so I do experience it. I do experience not being enough. I do experience being stupid. I do experience, being abandoned or alone, because I'm just collecting evidence for what I made up before I was 7 years old.
And you can see that when you start to bring the beliefs up. If you look back, then you'll be like, all these other situations will make more sense, because you now see it's almost like the operating system, right? You've been using this incorrect operating system that has these untrue beliefs, and these are manifesting in your experiences and your situations.
And the beautiful thing is that in just the same way, when I restore to what I truly am, then life reflects that to me. That's where the joy comes in, because it's actually true. And it's a hell of a lot better, because it's really and it's almost sometimes having to accept it. It almost hurts more to really believe it, to see the truth. And I say hurt, but it brings up some emotions. But really, at the end of the day, it's joy and love and connection and joining. Not separation.
I've been calling it the joyride, and but that's the best part for me. Also about why I feel comfortable continue to represent the Course and working with Team Miracles and Jan O'Kelly, our wonderful leader, and that the idea is this isn't just a belief system. We get experiences, we start to get a conviction, and so fundamentally we have to start with belief. But I think upon critical examination, we'd all collectively agree that belief just isn't good enough at some point, and that Jesus is not asking us to blindly believe and spend the rest of our lives as Course in Miracles students just believing. We get the opportunity to do the work, to follow the lessons, to study the text. And what's promised us literally in the course is that if you do this, you will get experiences that confirm that the words are true.
Yeah.
And so that is where, for me, it's not me. I didn't figure anything out.
Yeah.
I'm not being humble. Like, I have a little bit of a knowing now.
Yeah.
And it's something I didn't have or couldn't have had without this process.
Yeah.
And that has given me joy. That has given me conviction to work with you all and to continue to represent this path, because I can say to people, if you do it, you will get the experiences. You don't have to take my word. I could tell you about the beautiful experiences I've had, and I know that you've had as well. But it's really about an individual experience that's offered through the course. And I always like to say, when we start to really focus on that, is that A Course in Miracles is totally free. We're not pitching you anything. There's no sales at the end. There are services and workshops and things that we do that we do charge a little bit for, and there are processes, of course, but fundamentally A Course in Miracles is totally free, and that you can have an experience and go through the course without paying anything. And so I just like to make that clear. But also at the same time, there are ways for you to get involved with Choose Again, with Team Miracles, with the course, where there are things that you pay for. And to be certain, sometimes when you do pay a little bit, you value it more, but it's not necessary. And so I just always like to make that clear. But getting back to the transformational experiences, part of what you get to see are these shifts. And when I attended the Choose Again meetings, and got involved, it's powerful. And I think it's very clear that people very likely have more than one belief they need to release. Is that your experience?
Yeah, for sure. And just, I want to touch on what you said, because it comes up sometimes, going from having faith to knowing. And in processes, some people are, they don't want to let go of things, and they don't believe what we're telling them. And so, Deiderick often says that it's a faith-based position. And that's where you have to start, just, with a little willingness to believe something else. It's like, just because I've believed something, my whole entire life, and I was told it and I saw it outside of me, doesn't make it true.
Yes.
It's just a belief, like you said.
Yeah. And, there's kind of been, for me, like an Emperor's New Clothes kind of vibe where, and it's the best case scenario, because collectively as a species here within the illusion, like, we're all been wrong, and that's the best part. Nobody likes to be wrong, but when everyone's wrong, it's the best case scenario. And so I think I really enjoy that aspect of, because there's so many different beliefs out there. And again, we're not judging you for having beliefs. We're just saying, if you thought about it, wouldn't you rather know? And so it's also a very egotistical statement in the world to say, I know something. And to be clear, there's many spiritual thought systems, and even the Course at the beginning emphasizes the importance of not knowing, cleaning the slate. And at the end of the Course, there's a line in the Manual for Teachers about, can you admit that all you know right now is not all there is to learn? And that's like a beginning point. And so it is, to the world, almost arrogant to say I know something. But I think when we recognize that God is love and God has created us in the most loving way, well, God wants to be known. Truth wants to be known. It's not unrealistic to know, but also to be very clear, because of how well we did making the mess of this universe, we need help to know. And so these bits of knowing are really like a part of the journey.
And it's based on experience. So my certainty comes from experience. Not necessarily anything else. It's a transformational process.
It's the only way it can happen, right?
It's a mind training, so to speak.
I mean, it will never work or hold or stick without the experience.
And it feels like, to me, like, it's what was missing my whole life. Like, what I've been seeking my whole life is this conscious contact with God. I'll call it God, because that's what I call it. And I have it. And it's never gone. It's, it's always available to me. And I love that.
The idea that was possible. And it's almost a part of the belief systems on the planet for many, and not judging them in any way. We don't, once we believe, and that's it, we don't even think about it like we're missing that. Because it's just like, oh, this is what I do. I believe this, and then I live the rest of my life. But we don't recognize how those beliefs are then shaping the rest of our lives and our decisions. And as Travis mentioned a little earlier, then when we get this sense of knowing and this sense of using truth over our beliefs, we start to have these different experiences, and that starts to feel really good.
Yeah. And I was going to say that earlier. I'm so glad you said that, because that is something that I've used, and I say it to people all the time. How does it feel? Does it feel better to believe that I'm a bad sinner?
Yeah.
Keep using the word sinner.
Yeah. Guilty sinner.
Yeah, guilty sinner, or that I'm made in God's image, that I'm love and light, and the difference is a lot.
Just in saying it, what I mean? Yeah. Just in saying it, it's a little more brighter.
Yeah.
That who I am in truth could never be altered. That my innocence is intact. That no matter what I thought I've done, was never done.
Yeah.
And really, that's amazing. I spent my whole life pushing people away, not to get close to me, because my thought was my own family didn't love me. If you get to know who I am, I want to present in a certain way so that you'll at least be around, or maybe there'll be some kind of connection, but at a distance, please. I could never connect. And really, the word God pushed me away from it. I will say that what I didn't mention earlier is when I found Deiderick, there was a 2-year span where I was like really kind of hesitant, because I did learn that it was about the Course, and then I was like, whoa, this is kind of, I don't know, man, this might be another thing, like this is kind of a trap here. And so I was a little leery, but then I got down to the point in my life where it was like, there's got to be something else.
Yes.
And that's what worked.
Yeah. Again, we can talk about it, and we should, because it feels so good just to talk about it, right? What is that freedom like? What is it like to be bound and not know it? Never mind, also then bound in the way of knowing it. Neither is desirable. But the level of freedom that we have, first from the removal of the destructive things that we chose to put into our bodies or the ways we live, and then freeing our minds from the guilty sinner. There's no way to get to that until you stop the first.
And the addiction, when you look at, I just want to say just something about that real quickly, like the addiction, because we're talking about this a little bit. It's such use by the ego. The addiction is really just pain relief.
Yep.
I don't actually have an addiction.
Yes.
I'm just seeking pain relief that has very dramatic consequences.
Yes.
And the Course, so drugs promise and never deliver, but the Course shows us and a way to have it deliver in a gentle way.
Yes.
And that it is pain relief, that it is letting go of all the ideas that are creating my suffering.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm doing this to myself. So it's a closed loop in that way.
Yep.
The system of pain and destruction and death.
Yep. Very much like the resonation with all the Course students with the movie The Matrix. We're bound into this system that isn't true, that we just don't even know.
Yeah. We
can't even realize it. And 2 levels down, when you get into the the abusive and addictive behaviors, and it doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. We know sex, gambling, shopping. There's the ego, again, which is the device that we are using mistakenly to have our experience here, is going to constantly project out different aspects within the material world that we should be seeking to make ourselves feel better. And as you said, it's all basically pain management. We're not happy here, nor fundamentally can we ever be happy here, because this is not our home. And so whatever it is, there's 1,000 different options the ego is going to present to us, that you won't be happy until this happens here. And what we know is we're not going to be happy until we understand the truth of what we are, until we release the beliefs that aren't true, and that we start to connect with it. And I think one of the things that I got really excited about, as you said, is I've been waiting for this my whole life, was I had a sense at a very young age that like something's missing, because I saw that there were all these religions and almost the entire planet was believing in something. And certainly there was so many different answers to that something, but what I saw was there's got to be something that is true about what we're searching for, because it wouldn't work that unless it was. If billions and billions of people all searching for some type of answers, well, the question then has to me some validity. But it was very clear that the answer wasn't out there, because otherwise there wouldn't be all these different religions telling you all these different answers to the same question. So I got really excited when I understood that like this is what we're medicating ourselves. We're medicating ourselves because we know that we don't know something. We know that we forgot something. We know that there's something really wrong here, and we don't have a way to express that, because for most part, the whole world is living like we've got it all figured out. And the world is functioning in this materialistic, egoic way that promotes, just believe and don't think about it, or don't believe, but don't question.
Yeah.
And upon questioning, it all unravels really quick.
Yeah. And just to go back to the language in the Course for a minute, and so I'm in 12-step recovery, came from Catholicism, and was like, didn't want anything to do with any God that was, in the form of a person, in white cloak and whatever at the pearly gates.
Yep. In the clouds above us.
Yeah. And so I loved the 12-step version, of the God of your own understanding, and so for me, like, that became nature, and then when I came to the Course and it had that language in it, it scared me, and I didn't understand why it was used in there, the Son of God, and even Jesus, because the Jesus that I knew died for my sins, and so it took a minute, and yeah, I could process it, but to understand that really what the Course is a correction to all of that.
Yes.
And I didn't know it at the beginning. I thought, oh no, it's just another religion, but it is not.
No.
In any way.
Yes. We now can really understand why loving our neighbor is important. Not that we just should do it, but it's that it only enhances our experience, but also that we all are connected in a way that is kind of been reduced to the exact opposite on the planet. We've been separated by country, county, state, race, religion, political, etc., etc. The separation game is here. We see that. And the getting back to the unity, which, again, it's all about, it feels so much better. Yeah. Now, when we're doing the process of Choose Again, and when you're working with people, do you find that there is a specific thing that they should do or not do first, as far as preparing for maybe a Choose Again experience, or is it like jump right in? What are your recommendations as far as like getting involved in Choose Again?
I think it's a jump right in.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do to prepare.
Yeah.
And if there's willingness, it really becomes a bit of a surrender. Like I'm going to set aside what I think I know. I guess maybe that's a preparation. I'm just going to open my mind up. I'm going to have a little bit of willingness, and not even that may not even be necessary. But if you can sit through a few groups, you'll learn pretty quickly what's going on, and it's transformative even to be there.
Yes.
So not even enough to do the work, just to because it will work you. And your thoughts and your days to follow the circle, it gets in.
So showing up.
Just
really,
show up.
And you've both mentioned it, and it's important, the little willingness. That's a part of what Jesus is guiding us to in the Courses. We're not being asked to like figure this gigantic riddle out ourselves, or to understand that we have to radically shift our entire lives, cut our hair, live in a cave, change our job, leave our partner. All that's really asked of us is a little willingness. And I know you've seen it in your lives, and myself as well, as that little willingness reaps so much benefit. So for people who are interested in getting involved, it's kind of that two things that Travis said. Be open to being wrong about some ideas, or being open to being available to understand there might be more for you to know, and then showing up.
A lot of people that come are people that have been around the block a couple times, and they're at a place where they want a different experience. A lot of times.
I will add something that I find a little bit comical, but I understand why he says it. Deiderick says, "Have you tried everything?" Because if you haven't, go out and try that first. Wait, make sure you're good and done.
Because it is intense, and some people come and they think they want to do it. It sounds good, but it's work. I mean, it's emotional work, and it's good. You have to feel it to heal it. That's
important to know. And it's not something that to scare you or make you feel uncomfortable about. The idea is that there is healing needed. On this level of form, we're learning that there is healing, and we can relate. And you said it in one of the classic lines from the scribe of the Course, Helen Schuckman, and her relationship with Bill Thetford, was that there's got to be a better way. And we all have to get to that point. You've said it earlier, there's got to be. And so we're not trying to dissuade you from joining or taking a dip in the waters of Choose Again at the Course, but if you are sure that your life is perfect and joyous and happy, well, then don't change it. But if you have a sense that there's something missing, or that, you're in a place where you're ready to look at maybe there is a better way.
Yeah.
We had to come to that in our lives in different ways and different experiences, but fundamentally we're all being called to be joyful, to be happy, to be free. And the Course in Miracles and with Choose Again, it's another beautiful thing is that it's very clearly stated this is not the only way. You're not damned or doomed or in any way expected to be walking this specific path. This is a path that we've been blessed to walk and as we shared, experience the benefits of and get the conviction, the knowing that there's truth here, that there is an entirely fundamentally new way to live, which we call going on a mission for God, and that we think is kind of one of the coolest spiritual adventures were available. I mean, if you told me, I didn't know.
No, I was going to say that.
I didn't know this path was available. Right? I didn't know.
Well, I didn't know that's what this was going to lead to either. Like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's almost no way, right? At first, it's just like, well, I need help here. Something's going on that I'm not happy about. But the idea is like that this is available.
Yeah.
And the connections that are waiting for you. And Choose Again, what does it look like to contact you, to get involved in the process? Would you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the way to contact us is chooseagainsedona.com, and our information's on there. We do 2 live circles a week here in Sedona, and we do a couple circles online during the week. And people could also contact Choose Again directly. They have circles just about every day of the week online on Zoom.
Yeah.
And their website is choose-again.com. Deiderick has a book. It's called Choose Again, 6 Steps to Freedom. I think that's the official name of it.
Yeah. And there could be a link in there.
Yeah. Also, Travis and I do one-on-one sessions on Zoom for people that want a little extra time or individual time. So our contact information is on our website.
Yeah. But if you've got a thing that's been bugging you for years, we can get down to the bottom of it in 15 minutes. So believe it or not, that's how it works. And it really can transform your life. So that's what's being offered here. It's really transformational and it's worth the effort. Nothing else is working. This has the opportunity to.
You'll have in the new year, like you have this past year, some other events that'll be on your website as far as workshops, day workshops, weekend workshops.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Always something going on in Sedona. So.
Yeah.
I think it's important just to say, if you have come across these words, if you have found this video and are here listening to us, first, thank you for giving us the opportunity to share and connect with you. It's very likely that this path is worth exploring. A Course, Miracles, Choose Again, and the call to free yourselves and to live a life radically different than the way that you were taught you should be is available. And so if you're hearing this, if you're here, please continue to be open and explore what comes next as far as contacting Travis and Wendy, looking at the website, getting into A Course in Miracles. And we love you, and we want you to know that we're here to support you in any way we can.